Well, Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day conference call. And this is Barbara serving as your host today. And Brother Pete is here as your co-host.
I so appreciate you joining us.
Well, our title today is, Does Deuteronomy 4:19 command us to not look up to the sun, moon, and stars? If you look up, are you worshiping the sun, moon, and stars? Well, what if this verse purposely kept believers from the Creator's calendar? Many Bible readers, pastors, and even theologians have long assumed that Deuteronomy 4:19 forbids the observation of the heavenly bodies, specifically the sun, moon, and stars, out of fear that such attention might lead to idolatry. But what if that was never the intent of this verse at all? What if this very passage, so often quoted to discourage celestial observation, has been purposely and tragically mistranslated to disconnect believers from the original and sacred worship rhythm portrayed by these very celestial lights? Through a detailed interlineal word study and the proper application of both Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew dictionaries, this verse can be restored to reveal two astonishing things. One, it not only doesn't condemn lifting our eyes to observe the heavens, but admonishes us to remain faithful in doing so. Two, the real focus of this verse is a warning against a much deeper and more subtle form of idolatry, the worship of wealth and abundance and possessions. But this has been entirely overlooked because 5 words in the Hebrew text were ignored and never translated, causing it to appear a negative thing to observe the heavens for signs, moedim, days, and years. Genesis 1:14 is where you find that reference. Here is the King James Version of this verse in Deuteronomy 4:19.
And least thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun, the moon, and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which Yahweh your Elohim hath divided unto all nations under the whole heavens. At first glance, this translation appears to discourage even looking up to the heavens. However, a closer analysis of the Hebrew text, especially of key terms, mistranslated or omitted, reveals a drastically different and more theologically rich meaning.
2 key translation errors. The link for this word study is below here, and you can look it up for yourself. And you can verify what is noted below is accurate and not an additional misrepresentation. So today I want you to consider the 5 words that were never translated. Word-for-word comparison, all word studies utilize 2 or more lexicon sources to ensure accuracy. Missing words and overt errors in translation are highlighted in red. Then the asterisk represents a reversal of word order between a noun and its adjective. P and S denote the prefix and suffix in the Hebrew text column. Hebrew is read from right to left, and the part underlined is the portion that perfectly matches the Strong's word choice, with the remainder as the prefix and suffix. So we're going to go through this today just briefly, and you can go to the link and study this out well for yourself. And you'll see here Aleph and Tav, meaning a sign. And again listed, Aleph and Tav, a sign. Aleph and Tav, a sign. And I'll explain this in a minute. And the hymn, Strong's 1991, is also the hidden idol. Here we have again Aleph and Tav, as a sign. Well, when we correctly translate and restore these two terms that were not translated in 5 places within the verse, the meaning of Deuteronomy 4:19 is revitalized. Aleph and Tav, 1. Aleph and Tav, a misnumbered sign, Strong's H 852, can mean a sign. Hem, Hebrews 1991, the hidden idol.
Aleph and Tav, a misunderstood sign. The Hebrew term at, Aleph Tav, appears 4 times in this verse. Traditionally, it's assigned Strong's 853, which identifies it as a grammatical marker of a definite direct object, most often not translated into English. However, the identical spelling is also assigned another Strong's number, Strong's 852, is recognized as a noun meaning a sign, specifically a divine sign, token, or symbol. Strong's Hebrew 852, at, a sign, a miraculous mark or symbol. That apparently from Strong's. When interpreted as Strong's 852, the Aleph and Tav, the 2 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that make up this word, no longer grammatically silent. They become a visible, meaningful sign in the heavens, pointing to the divine design of sacred time. Hem, the hidden idol. The Hebrew word hem appears in the original text, but is left untranslated in most versions. Yet Strong's 1991 defines it as wealth, abundance, substance, or possessions. This dramatically shifts the passage's meanings. The warning is not about the celestial signs themselves, but about replacing those sacred signs with the pursuit and worship of material abundance and possessions.
So when we correctly translate and restore these 2 terms that were not translated in 5 places within the verse, the meaning of Deuteronomy 4:19 is revitalized. So as Brother Pete just read, the modern translation from King James Version says, "And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou see the sun and moon and stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God had divided unto all the nations under the whole heaven." Okay, now if you restore it with this Hebrew interlinear translation, it can say, "And lest you lift your eyes to the visible heavens and behold," the Aleph and Tav, behold the sign of the sun, and Aleph Tav, the signs of the moon, and Aleph Tav, signs of the stars, for all the appointed times in the heavens, but then cast these aside to worship your wealth and abundance and serve them instead. For Yahweh your Elohim allocated and divided his Aleph Tav signs for all the people and nations under the heavens. The warning. This translation affirms that the heavenly bodies were indeed created to govern the sacred calendar, Genesis 1:14, to mark the appointed times among the hosts of heaven, sun, moon, and stars. But the warning is this: do not trade divine revelation of Yah's sacred calendar for the comfort of worldly wealth, possessions, or gain. The Aleph and Tav, the sign, the signature of time and redemption. The Aleph and Tav are not incidental characters. They represent first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, bracketing all communication from Yahweh Elohim. In prophetic symbolism, they refer to the totality of the divine realm of timekeeping, the plan of salvation, and the great sacrifice of the long-promised and anointed Messiah.
Yeshua, HaMashiach, the Messiah himself, repeatedly identifies with this symbol. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, says Yahweh, which is and which was and which is to come, the Almighty. That's Revelation 1:8. Revelation 1:11, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Revelation 21:6, it is done. I am Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. And Revelation 22:13, I am Aleph and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last.
While the Greek terms Alpha and Omega appear in Revelation, this is actually a translation from the original Hebrew Aleph and Tav, a direct link back to the signs in the heavens and the covenantal lunar solar timekeeping system set forth by the Creator in the beginning. As he said in Revelation 22:13, I am the Aleph and the Tav. In the beginning, here's Genesis 1:14.
And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, for worship times, and for days and years.
The Aleph, ox, or lamb symbol, which one is it? Well, let's take a look specifically at the Aleph and Tav. Although it is most often taught that the Paleo Hebrew Aleph resembles the head of an ox as a symbol of strength, this interpretation is an alteration of the original symbolism that dates back to the earliest times. Rather, the head of an ox as the icon behind the Aleph is a compromise and a replacement of the pagan kind. You can pause the screen and read about the star, the bull, and Saturn. The ox or bull symbol represents the pagan god Remphan and Molech. Remphan is associated with Saturn, and Saturn is often linked to the concept of Satan. When in apostasy, the ancient Hebrews sacrificed their children to Molech, just as the surrounding pagan nations did. The ox, bull, is likewise connected to the Star of David, which is a symbol the Jews have adopted to replace the menorah, their symbol of light and truth. And we did a video about this, of the Star of David and the worship of Saturn, which I'll put on the end screen. So the beginning and the end. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve first sinned, it was a lamb that was slain as a substitute for sin, and a promise of the coming anointed Messiah. Its skins were replaced on our first parents as a covering of his righteousness, as a reminder that the death of the lamb was required, or they would have died that very day.
The Lamb's power has never been its strength, but its gentle, humble, and willing spirit. It was always the Lamb as the first and the last Paleo-Hebrew Aleph and Tav symbol that provided a continuous and unaltered storyline of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world, Revelation 13:8. The ancient Paleo-Hebrew letter Tav, shaped like a cross, stands as a prophetic symbol of atonement, the divinely appointed remedy for sin. It marked the sign of a covenant that would be fulfilled in the sacrificial death of Yeshua, HaMashiach, the long foretold Lamb of Yahweh. Upon the execution cross, he embodied the Tav in its fullest form, completing a 4,000-year prophecy that had foreshadowed his redemptive mission from the very beginning.
Signs, Moedim, days, and years. And those are all found in many scriptures, including Exodus 12, Ezekiel 46, Isaiah 66, 23. The restoration of time. Restoring Deuteronomy 4:19 to its rightful meaning is more than a linguistic correction. It represents a prophetic awakening. It is another example illustrating that the times of the Gentiles have been fulfilled, and Yah's truths are now being restored. The moon, together with the stars, tell the start of the year and the start of the month. The waning and waxing lunar phases tell the days of the month. So you will know the year, the month, and the day by the moon and stars. In contrast, the real danger is when mankind trades the sacred signs for temporal gain, choosing to worship wealth, success, and worldly possessions in place of the Creator's ordained order. Deuteronomy 4:19 does not rebuke the upward gaze. It rebukes the downward trade, exchanging Yah's sacred worship calendar and the eternal promise of salvation for temporal gain, wealth, and comfort. Yahweh has embedded his appointed times, new moons, lunar Sabbaths, and lunar appointed feast days into the divinely ordained rhythm of the heavens. See Psalms 104:19. To observe these correctly, commencing with the new moon near the feet of the starry constellation Bethula, Virgo, in the spring, Revelation 12:1, is not to observe these signs is not pagan. It is to walk in step with our Creator. This is how we reconnect with the storyline of our salvation each year, as it is foretold in the heavens. This is how we follow the Lamb, Messiah, whithersoever he goes, as he fulfills the plan of salvation to remedy for sin. To misrepresent this passage as a blanket prohibition against observing the luminaries is to undermine the very mechanism by which Yah's bridal covenant was fashioned to perpetually guide his bride back to himself. In Revelation 12:1 says, "And there appeared a great wonder in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." So Revelation 19:7 says, "Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife has made herself ready." So we were not meant to fear the signs in the heavens, but to faithfully follow them, not as objects of worship, but as witnesses to the promise of salvation by the way of Yah, Elohim's sacred appointed times, from the beginning to the end, the testimony of his Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last. So let us reclaim the purpose for which the sun, moon, and stars were created. His set-apart new moon days, lunar Sabbaths, and lunar appointed feast days were ordained from the beginning to point us yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily back to the one who set them in motion in Genesis 1:14. So to access more information about how to see the calendar in the heavens that gives us our yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily signs, I ask you to go to our website, LunarSabbathDay.com. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and I appreciate each one of you.